Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 346, assigning value to players. Entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Sega Verbinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting-edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with a team for the very first time. There's something we can all do to take our teams to the next level. I'm really excited for today's podcast because I was listening to a YouTube video about giving players value. It had nothing to do with it, but the coach who was giving the video talked about that as just like a random note. He just randomly brought it up, didn't explain what it was. And that kind of triggered something in my mind of assigning value to players. And I'm excited to kind of go through it and just talk it out with you, see what you think of it. But it's an interesting system. But before that, let's go over the weekend and kind of start things off the right way. So this weekend, there were no games for me. We're starting our games next weekend. Everyone's playing at the same time. So it's going to be the first weekend, I think, where everyone's playing. And probably one of the only weekends, I think, that everyone's playing. There is within the two districts that we're in, the teams are alternating a little bit. So especially for the York region, which is the under 12s and under 9s, that league is really alternating most weeks. We did get Sunday games for that, so I have 2 games on Sunday, and it looks like I'll have 1 game just alternating between the teams, which I think is really good. You know, with the outdoor, the fact that there's games every weekend, it really focuses you as the coach to have to focus on the game. Like I just feel like, you know, there's a lot to unpack within each game for each team, so things come out and it doesn't leave as much time as I'd like for training. And I know that's a little bit not what I preach, but I'm such an analytical coach that when I see a problem in the game, I really want to solve it, and I really try and think out ways to solve that problem, especially if we're not building out of the back right, if we're not able to beat players on the wings, if we're not able to keep possession in there are so many parts of the game that you can focus on. So the fact that we kind of have a game every 2 weeks for some of these teams is really going to allow, especially for the U9s, it's going to allow that 1v1 focus that has made these players really good. Now for the U9s, we're also in Division 3. I don't know how that's going to go. The reason we're in Division 3 is there's a couple of reasons. One, I've never played in this league before, so I don't know how good the teams are. So I always, whenever we get into a new district, I always put our teams in the lowest district. The other reason is that this is a brand new team with 3 players that are playing up a year and 2 years. So we have a lot of players that are brand new to soccer, have never played on a team atmosphere before, and that's going to be really challenging. That's a big challenge to kind of get through. For me, I'm really excited to work on something that I really haven't worked on before with other teams. With most of the other teams, the attitude has really been one of friendship and cohesiveness. It's just worked out that we've had a lot of friends coming and playing on the same team. This is one of the first years that we don't have that. And what I mean by that is when we get players, usually they come in pairs, or if one player comes, then 2 or 3 of their friends from school come, and there's kind of already a foundation of friendship. It's not like that with this team. All the players are completely different. A lot of them haven't played with each other for a long time. So building that cohesiveness, that friendship, and the right attitude that makes our academy different, the kindness that I want our players to show each other on and off the field, just supporting each other, all that stuff is something that I don't think these players are really at a very high level with yet. Having said that, their soccer IQ, their technical and tactical ability for their age is off the charts. So I'm not worried about the scores. I'm not worried about the 1v1s, the possession. I'm not worried about that because we're in Division 3 and some of these players are probably some of the best players we've ever seen in the academy. So I'm not worried about all that. I am worried about the other parts. One of the most important things that I'm really worried about is how are they going to react when they get scored on? And that's really what I want to focus on for a lot of it. So I'm going to be putting them in situations where that's going to happen. And you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? You want other teams to score on you. Well, it's part of development. When we get into U12 and U13, which we are now, how does a team bounce back from getting scored on? Well, when do you work on that? And if you can work on that from the youngest age, that we get scored on, someone comes, gives a high five, pat on the back to the goalkeeper, another player claps their hands, says, don't worry, we'll get it right back. That's the team that you want, and that's the team that you want to get older and be together. So a lot of my team talks before the game, during halftime, after the game. I don't really do talks after the game because I like to just let the players go. I think that's something that I do very different. The game's over. To sit there and analyze it now, there's no point. The only time I'll really do a team talk is if we get really destroyed and the players are just sad about it. But other than that, I don't. So I think most of my team talks are going to be about this kind of creating a family atmosphere. And that's really what I'm excited to coach because I've never really been able to coach that because it's already kind of been there. So, yeah, that's kind of a short little thing that I'm excited for. So that's going to come up this week, and I'll tell you how that goes. This weekend was OPDL, Ontario Development, provincial development. It's really essentially supposed to be, and I say supposed to be, the highest level that you can play in Ontario, the province that we're in. Now, OPDL is, I've talked about it in the past, it's the league that doesn't have promotion relegation, and essentially it's a buy-in league is what I like to call it, where teams that can afford it financially are able to put teams in. Because of the no promotion relegation, to me, any league without promotion relegation is, it doesn't make you the best. It really doesn't. And from 13 and over, which is where this league is, you should have promotion relegation. That's just the way it should be. So the fact that they don't, and it is a big red flag for me. I watched the games. I'll say this: players are good. They're not bad players. There's potential there for a lot of them, but the soccer IQ, the tactical IQ, is just not where it should be for a level that should be the best level in Ontario. There was no rhythm to the game. No teams had possession. I never really saw more than 3 passes or 4 passes. It was just really kick it long if there were no options. If you're talking about the highest level from U13 to U18, it's just not there. There were the same teams over and over again pretty much in most of the finals, and that again, what does that say? Right? Not really balanced. It's just, I don't know. But it was really cool to see. Again, everything was streamed, so great job Ontario Soccer with being able to showcase that. I want to be able to see who my competition is. I want to be able to see how good teams are at what's supposed to be the highest level. So to be able to see that and sit at home, I love it. I absolutely do. So shout out again to Ontario Soccer. If you do want to watch games, not that there'll be games for a while, but you can just follow them on Instagram. You can just Google not Google. You can search on Instagram Ontario Soccer, and they post it on their page. So yeah, it was a Twitch link this time. Before that was a YouTube link. So yeah, uh, that was my weekend essentially. Watched some games. Watched Man City play. Uh, Watched a little bit of Arsenal as well, and this is kind of the last weekend off, I guess. But even now, the winter season, it's not going to be as bad as the summer season simply because everything is in one location. So my Saturdays are all in one location. My Sundays are all in one location. What I disliked about the summer is that you had to travel from game to game, and some of them were an hour away, some of them were 30 minutes away. Then there's Toronto traffic, which is the worst. So I think these are all issues that other coaches, parents even can relate to. If you have multiple kids and they're playing on different teams, the Saturday's gone, But now playing in the same facility, I think that's really important. And what I loved in our first season was it was kind of the end of the COVID era, we can call it that. Everyone played in one location in outdoor. This was, I want to say like 3 years ago, something like that. Maybe 2 years, I don't know. But everyone played in one location. That was great. I think that especially with the younger kids up to U12, right, where there is no scores, that should be what we're trying to do. Limit travel. Just limit it. Why do we need to travel? I don't need to go to Ottawa. I don't need to go to downtown Toronto. I don't need to go. It's just, I'm not even focusing on the other team. I don't care if the team is the best team in the world or they're the worst team in the world. I will adjust my team to play that. And I think that's what coaches should be doing. So the opponent doesn't matter for me ever, to be honest, even above U13. But yeah, so interesting weekend being able to watch games. And one game just got really rough. There was a lot of fans, which is so good for clubs to bring in, younger players, parents, stuff like that. Great thing for the clubs to be proud of. I can say what I want about, how I feel about promotion relegation, but at the end of the day, the clubs have nothing to do with it anymore. It's not like the clubs are making those decisions. So the clubs are doing what they can with what they have, and, all credit to them. If this is what's going on in your country, in your province, in your state, there's not much you can do to change it at this point other than voice your opinion. Then you might as well be a part of it. I don't agree with OPDL, but in the future, will I be a part of OPDL if I can? 100%. Why not? It's considered the best league in Ontario. We've lost players because they went to go play in this league. So to have that, I think, is really important. And if you can't really change it, then make the best of what you have and change your atmosphere and your environment within your club if that's what you have control over, or your district. That's where your voice is really heard, and you can change it. So no use complaining about something that can't really be changed. And really great for those clubs to one. It was pretty much 3 or 4 clubs, I think, that ended up playing in most of the finals. Great for them, fantastic, and get the parents out, get the players out. Everyone supports the team. It creates an environment of positivity within your club or academy. So kudos to them. What I wanted to talk about today, like I said, I watched a YouTube video. It was the English FA. They came out with a YouTube video, and the coach was doing a tactical session, and he spoke about it was a small-sided game, and he randomly just kind of kept talking about values assigned to certain players. So he was like, this player is assigned a 3, this player who scored is assigned a 1, and I didn't really understand what he was talking about, but it sparked an idea in my mind about giving value to players throughout the game. So I want to kind of talk it out with you right now And this is again for development. So, but as I'll show you, you can change it up so that it's kind of it's what you end up needing, right? So if we think about the professional game, we can talk about players. For example, let's say there's let's say Kevin De Bruyne is sitting for a game. There's a certain amount of workload that each player has to have, right? And this is through athletic trainers, and they have all these measurements and things that allow players to be in peak physical condition, right? They wear trackers and stuff like that. So if a player is missing some of that time that they need playing, what you'll end up seeing, and I've seen this a lot in professional games, is after the game is over, some players will stay on the field and they'll play simply to get that fitness of as if they were part of the game. So there's that part of the game, and then it's the opposite scale as well, where players who need rest, you'll always hear, Holland has been playing for so long, we need to rest him. And how do they know that? It's not just like an arbitrary measurement, right? It has to be accurate. So obviously we don't have those same tools for youth soccer, especially if you're a parent coach, if your child plays, stuff like that. So I kind of came up with something. Hopefully it'll help. But let's go through it and kind of see. So the way that I'm starting out is let's just play 7v7. I think that's going to be the easiest. We're playing a 2-3-1. And the way that I'm assigning it is this. I have 10 players total on my team. 7 players are playing. 3 players are on the bench. Okay? The 7 players on the field, I'm going to give each of them a value of 3. Okay? I want the whole team to end up with that number 3. Okay? That's the average. 3 means that you're happy. Okay? That's what, for me, 3 means. Okay? 1 means, or even 0, anything below a 1, anything below a 2 is sad, and 2 is okay. Okay? Ideally, we want all of our players to leave the game with a value of 3. Now, the players on the field start with 3. Why? Because they're all starting. So they should be happy. They're starting the game. So that's a smile on their face. The players on the bench, however, they're not starting. So they're probably a little bit sad. So I'm giving them a 1 to start out with. Now, those values are going to increase and decrease throughout the game based on different events that happen. So I'll give you an example. My striker, okay, starts with a value of 3. I'm going to give an additional number, a +1, if that player scores. If any player on the field scores, they get a +1. So let's say my forward, who is a 3, scores. Now that player is a 4. They scored. Okay? They are the happiest on the field. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is I need to balance it out. Okay? So I know that I have a player who is a 4. I know I have a bench player who is a 1, so I'm going to switch them. Whenever a player comes off, I'm going to subtract 1. Why? Because that's making them less happy because they're not playing. A player coming on the field gets a +1. So I now have a 4 that comes off my forward, and now it becomes a 3. The number 1 player, my substitute, comes on the field, and they get an additional point. So now instead of a 1, they are a 2. And we're going to do this with different things throughout the game. So here's how I assigned it. A +1 for a goal, a +1 for an assist, a +1 for playing time, -1 for coming off, and a -1 for a mistake. And I'll go through each one and kind of talk about why I did it. I think goals and assists are pretty self-explanatory. And so is playing time, right? You go on, you're happy. And bench is when you go and sit on the bench, so that's -1 as well. If you make a mistake, for me, that reduces your happiness, right? You made a mistake, you're sad. So if I have a player who's a level 3 right now and they made a mistake, they are now a -1. And I think if you use this kind of scale, then you'll avoid mistakes that most coaches do, in my opinion. Most coaches, when a player makes a mistake, they'll take them off. And if you take them off, you're now making them even less happy. So not only are they -1 for a mistake that they made, but it's another -1 because you're taking them off. So a player who was 3 is actually now a 1. Now, what's really great about this is that you can change the scale to whatever you want. So let's say, forget 7v7. Let's say we're playing 11v11. This is a U14 team. Okay. So at this point, let's not say U14. Let's say U18. Maybe I'm a college team or a high school team, whatever that is, where we're actually trying to win the game. So using a scale like this, we can just change our objective. With the younger age groups, my objective is to end the game with as many players as I can close to the 3 as possible. Obviously, that's probably not going to happen, right? We want to give equal playing time. There are some players on my team that play most of the game because I need them to play the system that we are trying to play. So there are some players that might end up with 4. You might have a player who, scores 3 goals, right? But you're not just going to take them off every time they score. That doesn't make sense. If they go on score, you're not just going to take them right back off, right? So the idea here is to try and get everyone on an average of 3, right? On an average of however you want to assign that numbering system. Now, if we're playing with a team that's not the goal is to win games. You can still use this system, but have a different goal. So the goal at the end of the game is to see who has the highest number. And you can assign different things based on other factors, right? Maybe you can do, I don't know, 0.1 for every pass, right? You can do 0.1 for every 1v1 that they're successful. 0.1 for possession, keeping possession, right? For a tackle that they make, winning back possession. You can do so many things with this chart and then give it certain values based on what you think is the most important. So, for example, I'm a possession-based team, right? All my teams are possession-based. Sorry, I'm a possession-based coach. That is what I want my teams to play. So I will give value based on players making those decisions. Those will get higher value than other things. And because of that, the player that ends up with the highest value, that is going to be a player that I'm going to keep playing. So you can do this with every single one of your players, right? And at the end of the game, you can make a list of, okay, this player had 10 points, 8 points. Okay, so these are the players that are definitely important to our team, our style of play, and are the players that I'm going to keep on the team. Having said that, there might be a player who ends up with 0. You could even end up in a negative. A player turns it over 4 times, right? A turnover is one of the worst things if I'm a possession-based coach, right? So I could assign that a -1, a -1.5. You can really come up with anything you want. And then at the end of the game, you can say, well, this player has lost the ball for us countless times. So next game, they're not going to play, right? So if you can change the goal, you can change the assigning of what the values are, how much they're worth. You can really do anything with it. Again, I'm a youth coach. I'm a development-based coach. Even at U17 for us, I really hope that I'll continue. I don't know. I can't say that because we've never really played a real competitive game. And what I mean by that is a game that the scores count, right? There hasn't been standings for us. up to U12, and that's now we're just entering U13. So we'll see how we do, but every single one of our teams up until U12, the goal here for me, everyone needs to come out with a 3, right? Everyone needs to come out on that 3 on the happy scale. Okay? Maybe U13 is different now. Okay? Maybe, I mean, it's not going to be because, again, I don't care about the score. But if I did, right, instead of 3 equaling happy, right, 3 could equal, you know, had a good game, right? 4 could equal, I don't know, best player on the field, could be most valuable player, could be whatever it is, right? The higher the scale up, the higher the player goes up, the better they played. The lower, the less well they played, right? So I think it's a really interesting concept. And if you have an assistant coach, someone with you, you can track this kind of stuff, right? And it's pretty simple to do. The way that I would do it personally is I would write down the players' names, a list of their names, and the players that are starting, I would just put a 3 beside their names. If a player scores, +1, +1 assist, -1, I'm taking them off, +1, I'm putting them on. Made a mistake, -1. And then maybe at halftime or at the end of the game, check it out. Total up your scores, see where each player lies, and then you can make an adjustment for next game, right? I could say, Johnny got a 1 last time, so he probably needs more playing time, right? We want to give him that chance to get to that 3. Maybe I'll try and even get him to a 4, right? I want him to be super happy at the end of the game. Thanks for listening to another episode of Coaching Soccer Weekly. I'm really, really excited because we're finally getting back into games. I have games on Saturday, I have games on Sunday, so it's going to be a fun weekend. 2 games on each day, which isn't a lot, so it's not like I'm packed on a Saturday, so I think that's going to be really good. And I'm actually really excited for our 2014s. These kids have been with me for such a long time now, and they've never really had their own age group. So this is really exciting. And we'll see how they do this weekend, but I'm expecting a lot of really good things from them. I'll talk a little bit about kind of how that goes, but our other teams I think are really going to struggle this year because every other team is playing up a year. So I'll talk about that as well. So you'll have to stay tuned, but until next week, enjoy the journey, enjoy the moments, but most importantly, enjoy the game. Coaching Soccer Weekly is a production of World Class Coaching. All rights reserved.
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end. And you can check out more of our videos right here. And if you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and the subscribe button.